The wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. So begins one of the greatest achievements of modern literature, Robert Jordan's best-selling fantasy saga, The Wheel of Time.
I can remember picking up The Eye of the World off the bookshelf. I was 14, maybe 15, and I had no idea the scope of what I was getting into. I don't think any of us did. I don't even know if Robert Jordan knew. This has become the dominant, fantasy series for my generation. My generation didn't grow up reading Tolkien. They grew up reading Robert Jordan. This is the story of what it's like to be told that you have to save the world. It is the story of Rand al'Thor, simple farm boy who discovers that the weight of the world is going to be on his shoulders.
Rand has been prophesied from the very beginning to come to power both politically and personally in order to go and face the Dark One in the last battle where he can save the world.
It's the stories of kings and queens, and it's the stories of the lowest of peasants and what they go through as the world is coming to an end.
Robert Jordan is one of the great heirs that came after Tolkien.
Definitely one of the masters of this genre.
He paved the way for the long series, just unquestionably.
This is clearly the longest, the most extensive single story written in fantasy.
The Wheel of Time has a backstory that covers 3,000 years.
I have never counted the pages.
2,000 years of characters.
He didn't write short.
All of it compressed into a 3-year time period in the narrative. That means there's a whole lot going on every given page in the series.
In 1990, Tor Books published the first entry in the Wheel of Time series, The Eye of the World.
The Eye of the World, that was the start of this great sweeping epic. He couldn't fit it into one book. It ended up 3 books. Book 2 more than double the sale of book 1, but the 3rd book hit the New York Times list, and from there it was just up and away.
It was very exciting.
And now it's 14 books later.
It is a worldwide phenomenon. There are about 35 languages.
44 million in the US and Canada.
It just kept growing. People just loved them.
I think anything that sells 44 million in North America is going to spin off a lot of side interests.
The franchise has spawned comic books,
Costumes,
video games,
graphic novels,
conventions,
Badali Jewelry makes the jewelry,
clothing lines.
I mean, it's kind of unique. There's no other fantasy that has done that was written in North America.
I don't even know if you can encapsulate in a single sentence how the Wheel of Time affects people in this way.
I would definitely say that Robert Jordan's attention to detail is part of what makes these works so great. Like the great painters and artists, he doesn't ignore even the smallest details. And if you go back to the Renaissance painters, the great masterpieces, and you look in the corner, the part that everyone's going to ignore, the detail there is just as fine as the detail on the figures right at the center. And this was what Robert Jordan was doing.
Every page is jam-packed with details. There's so much richness when it comes to the characters' mythologies and the battles and conflicts that really sets this series apart.
It's impossible to gauge the effect of these books on the genre in the same way that it'd be really hard to quantify the impact that Tolkien had.
But in 2005, tragedy struck. While writing the final book in the series, Robert Jordan developed amyloidosis, a rare blood disease, and passed away 2 years later.
I, as many fans did, was crushed when he passed away. He'd been so positive on his blog. If you go read his final blog entries, it sounds like he's totally whipping it. He's whipping the disease, he's gonna make it, he's gung-ho, and then he was just gone.
In his last weeks, he made it unmistakably clear to me that he wanted us to follow through and see the series completed.
He really cared about the people who had been reading this series all these long years and thought they were owed an ending. Brandon, we thought, was really quite the right person.
Robert Jordan had often told fans this last book was going to be enormous.
He had worked out this detailed outline for the last book, and just one book. I didn't for a minute believe it was going to be one book.
I said, I'm doing it the length, he said, I'm doing it the length the notes indicate, and this is what it's got to be.
One becomes three very easily.
In January 2013, The Wheel of Time will finally be done. Fans will finally be able to read the scene that I got to read in 2007. The last one. Robert Jordan wrote the last scene himself.
They can see this story in its completeness, as it should be.
And for some people, this is the opportunity to dive into The Wheel of Time for the first time and enjoy the whole series in its complete form.
I think future generations are going to be, in some ways, lucky. We were in some ways lucky because we got to wait. We got to talk about it and theorize, and they will have it complete.
The Wheel of Time is sure to keep turning for many ages to come.